Thank you to Pelisippi, Rebecca. Thank you for inviting me to come and be a part of this presentation. And so to start, thank you for taking the time to be part of this presentation. As a little bit of an introduction, my name is Anthony. My last name is Arnone, and I work with U.S. Bank right here in Hardin Valley. I work at the branch here in Hardin Valley. I'm the branch manager of that location. I've been fortunate enough to be with U.S. Bank now for a year, but my banking career spans about 13 years total in banking, and I love the opportunity to get to intermingle with clients and teams and all that comes with that responsibility. But if any of you are ever in our area and choose to drop in and learn more about us or have questions, maybe you bank with us currently, you're always welcome to come in and sit down with me in my office, and I'll take the time that's needed that you feel you'd like to spend some more time and chat about whatever's on your mind. So, but thanks again for inviting me to come. This topic that we'll discuss today is so important, and as a leader, it's very important for me to kind of guide and navigate those who report to me amongst professionalism. Obviously, we live in an ever-evolving society, so things change, but it's super important to just understand fundamentals of professionalism. And so I was super excited to be asked to speak today, and then also to choose the topic on professionalism, because it doesn't matter how old we get or how long we're in our careers, we can always learn more and more of effective ways and approaches to professionalism. So we'll get started here with some welcome introductions. The objective of our workshop today is to define professionalism and discuss what it takes to be a professional, to talk about professional standards and discuss the ramifications of violating ethical and professional standards. There are some standards, and you'll kind of see what those are throughout our time today. Depending on the career that you find yourself in, you have to comply within certain regulations of those roles, and how you respond to those can have some implications. And then also to test professional judgment, to plan for professional and personal success, and then of course an icebreaker before jumping in. So one or two of you, with those of you that are in the class here with me today, what would you feel is your best professional asset? So what do you know and who do you know that you feel is your best professional asset? Anyone? Anyone on? I know we've got some of you in online, and so that may be something that you want to respond via chat, and you're certainly welcome to do that. So professional asset, what you know, who you know, obviously is skill and acquiring skill, and then of course networking and your folks that you get to know throughout your career that can help you either advance in your career or enhance the skill that you currently obtain in your career. So if anyone pops into chat, let me know, and we can certainly go back to that. But for the sake of time and to continue, defining professionalism. So David Meister wrote a book called In True Professionalism, The Courage to Care About Your People, Your Clients, Your Career. And he wrote, professionalism is predominantly an attitude. It implies pride in work, a commitment to quality, a dedication to the interests of clients, and a sincere desire to help. Claudine Sherrill, who is a professor at Texas Women's University in 2006, her idea of professionalism is a lifelong set of beliefs, attitudes, behaviors that must be learned, internalized, personally constructed, and reconstructed. Professionalism doesn't just happen with the completion of a degree or certification, but it must be explicitly taught, motivated, modeled, mentored, evaluated, and expected from the moment a student declares a specialization in one of the recognized professions. So, what does professionalism mean to you? Would anyone like to give an idea of what it means? It's different for everyone, right? Yes, sir.
Punctuality.
Punctuality, being on time, certainly. Yeah. June? Manage your emotions. Wow, that's a good one, right? You'll find yourself in situations at time that can just heighten your emotions, right? But how you respond could really level out a different type of perception when it comes to professionalism. Good, good. Professionalism and the college student. Students should understand that professional self-identity is a state of mind identifying oneself as a member of a professional group, and that was written by Crossley and Vikanata Schmidt. Considered together, all these things imply that students begin developing a professional persona while in the college setting. So, considerations that are important in the setting, obviously, of a professional tone: telephone etiquette, right? How you respond, how you speak over the phone, modes of communication. We live in a very fast-paced, get to it really quickly type of communication now in our society. But is that the right type of communication? Are you responding with the right type of communication? Conversational decorum. How to lead out and talk in a conversation, and proper dress, of course. A 2010 poll of HR and business leaders conducted for the Center of Professional Excellence at York College identified 5 primary characteristics of professionalism, and we'll go through a few of those. So 1, personal interaction skills, including courtesy and respect. A lot of these can be attributed back to when we were youngsters, things that our parents taught us, our grandparents, or those maybe those teachers that we had, right? Just being kind to our peers, right? Courtesy and respect. Skills to communicate and listen. Great work ethic. Being motivated and staying on task until the job is completed. Professional appearance, self-confidence, and awareness. And according to the poll, nearly 60%, more than half hiring decisions for new college graduates are based on the assessments of the applicant's professionalism. Moreover, 1 in every 3 respondents believe that fewer than half of all new graduates exhibit professionalism in the workplace. Those who cited a decrease in professionalism pointed to young workers' sense of entitlement for the jobs, changes in culture, values, and then a lack of work ethic among new workers. Anyone putting anything into chat? We're good? Not yet. Okay. So transitioning to the workplace, it can be scary. We've went through college, we've went through high school, or maybe we're changing kind of our career goals and we're already an adult, but there's transitioning that now we've learned kind of fundamentals of what it is I'll be doing in my job, but how do we transition professionally into that role, right? Polls show that many college graduates fail to show the needed level of personal professionalism. Why do you feel like that might be the case? Any ideas? Why do you feel like that the polls show that a lot of college graduates failed to show that? Yes, sir.
They just don't have any experience being in that type of environment.
Sure, could be, yeah. Lack of experience. Would you like to add anything? Yeah.
It says lack of mentorship and experience.
So true, yes. Lack of mentorship. Maybe they just don't have anyone that has spent the time with them to cover kind of what this looks like in this role, right? So a few things. These all came from the polls. Casual dress, how they showed up to whatever that type of role is. Culture of pass rather than excel. This one really resonated with me. When you're in your studies, sometimes it can be so easy to get caught up with just wanting to pass, right? Just a passing grade. And sometimes that takes us from the responsibility of really dedicating time to excel at that grade, right? And come to make an excelling grade and just get through it. But it can have impact when you're looking at the polls that were completed. Lacks on attendance policy. Any other ideas?
Pamela in the chat says age gap.
Age gap. Could very well be, right? Age gap. There are a lot of times, and I see it in my industry, where folks that have been in the industry so long, it's very difficult for them to kind of evolve and get more educated or skill, getting a little bit more excelled at skill, because it's always been this way, so why do we need to change it, right? But that's so true, age gap. Being mindful that we can learn, I can learn from someone younger than me, or I can learn from someone older than me. So such a good piece of feedback there. Students may assume that they can continue to dress casually, be routinely tardy, and also exert little to no effort when completing tasks on the job. These assumptions, though, are incorrect, and they may result in newly students receiving poor performance ratings during a 30-day, a 3-month, or a 6-month evaluation, or on annual employment evaluations. And these are super important as you are into your career, and these evaluations become part of conversations that you have with your manager, your leader. These a lot of times can determine if you will be retained based on what you're committing to and continuing to grow, or simply let go, right? And oftentimes, full-time employees are on probation for the first 3 to 6 months of employment. So some aspects of professionalism. Communication. Why do you think communication is important for professionalism? Why would that be?
So the wrong inferences aren't made.
True, yeah. Communication is key to everything. You got to have a clear communication, and how you communicate with others can speak to your commitment to professionalism. So workplace listening. It's a type of active listening that is generally employed in a professional environment. Workplace listening includes understanding the listening process, perception, interpretation, evaluation, and action, and its barriers that hamper the flow of that process. I tell my team with where I work, we hear and we understand much more when we take a moment to listen than we do if we're trying to solve. There's a time for solve, but the most important aspect is listening. That's where we're learning and we're uncovering the most at. It's imperative to become aware of the role of nonverbal communication, picking up on cues, right? Picking up on folks' nonverbal and communicating in the workplace, as understanding messages wholly entails more than simple verbal messages. Standard language is mandatory. Always consider the context and the receiver of the intended message. As I've given this presentation out before, I always use the phrase, consider your audience. Is this the right way to respond? Is this the right lingo to use, right? Are you responding in a way that's appropriate for where you are and who you're speaking to, right? And as you see here, would you greet your boss or your teacher with, hey dude, what's up, right? Now I know that we live in a different time, and some of that is even a little bit more common now than maybe it was previously, but you always want to be mindful of what type of communication you're using, who you're using it to, and is your professionalism intact when you do use it? Yes, ma'am.
Mia in the chat earlier said that communication can make or break an interaction.
Every time. I've spoken in other seminars where we've talked about on the topic of first impressions. First impressions are made within the first 8 seconds. So within 8 seconds, the person that you're communicating to is either going to sum you up with what they have already perceived about you, of how that interaction is going to go, and they're either going to determine you're going to be helpful to them or you're not going to be helpful to them. So you have a very short window of time where that perception is key, and how you communicate is going to set the tone for it every single time. Great feedback. I love that. Anyone else? Nope. Do you guys have anything you'd like to add to this? No? Okay. What could hinder your ability to listen or receive a message? what could hinder your ability to listen? What gets in the way sometimes where maybe we didn't hear something?
Formulating your response
Formulating your response?
while they're talking.
Yeah, every time. That's a big one, and it's very natural. We all do that, right? No matter how old you get or how long you've been in your career, it's very natural for you to just do it, right? I had a leader once do a leader presentation and a workshop with us managers, and one of the things that he was hung up on the most was listen to understand versus to respond. And it makes such a difference. You understand fully what the issue is, and as you're responding, you're solving the opportunity for whoever it is that has brought that opportunity to you. Anyone else? Anybody else have anything that you'd like to add there? What could hinder your ability to listen?
Not paying attention and maybe being on your phone.
Not paying attention, being on your phone, yeah. Not fully there, yeah.
As we're going to say, trying to multitask.
Yeah. One of the things that I have to remind myself constantly is to be present, right? It's for my team, it's for my customers, and being present is to eliminate distractions. And we live, again, in a society that there is demands at every hand, right? Our children might be in daycare. Our parents may be elderly, right? And so we have something that's being thrown at us at all the time, right? And so when we can eliminate distraction, especially for those that we're communicating with, we are putting ourselves in a position to fully understand and being able to respond. Yes, ma'am.
Mia says also thinking you already know the whole situation instead of hearing everything out.
Huge. Assumption is not the way to go. Assumption can really lead you down a path that really is tragic, both for you and whomever it is that you're communicating with. Yeah, that's good. Very good. These are all great ideas. You know, life is busy, right? So things just get in the way. Sometimes at work, it's just busy. There's people coming in from every direction. There's different tasks going on at all times, prioritization, and then, of course, again, eliminating those distractions that could hinder communication. Kind of speaks to what we were talking about with the phones, right? It's an increasingly digital age of communication, sometimes forgetting who our audience is. When communicating by email or through academic writing, it's important to remember a few things. Text lingo or slang is not appropriate, right? Use full sentences. Follow the rules of grammar. Be sure to double check the meaning of words you're not very familiar with. So be mindful of that. Again, who is your audience? How are you responding to them? What are you writing? How are you writing it? Even when sending a short email message, maybe at work or school, communication is the property of the school or the employer. This means that it can be subpoenaed and used against you. We tell our teams with where I work, everything that you do is recorded. Every advancement you make on a computer is recorded, right? Probably the same exact way right here at the college. If I had to say it's probably that way. Any device that you're on that's owned by the entity, a lot of times that communication is the property of that school or employer. This means that it can be, again, subpoenaed and used against you. So threatening or harassing communication, it's not acceptable, and it's just not appropriate. It's not appropriate for your work environment and, of course, your school environment, and it can cost you. A lot of good people have lost their careers because of the way that they responded to an email, or they responded to appear in chat or what have you. So be mindful of that. I'm not going too fast, am I? Everybody good? Okay. Unless otherwise specified in your syllabus or employer handbook, text messaging is not appropriate mode of communication for absences or other business academic related things. The thing that I tell my team, I'm fine with text messaging, but we shouldn't lead out with that, right? Don't go into any job or work for any manager just assuming that mode of communication is acceptable. The acceptable communication for U.S. Bank is that you speak directly with your manager, right? And in most cases, it's that way, unless your manager, of course, has their mode of communication that's acceptable. Same thing with your teachers or those that you're responsible for communicating. But I'll say, don't get into the trap of just thinking it's acceptable to text because you text people and you prefer text. Make sure that that preference is okay with those that you're reporting to. So with the school, what is the current policy on reporting absences? How does that work? I know this is college, so it's probably a little different than like high school and things like that, but how does reporting absences work for the college?
I think it really just depends on your manager.
Okay.
So for me, I don't care if anybody texts, email, call, whatever, just as long as the information gets
Communication,
But
yeah.
if I was going to report an absence to my boss, I would probably call.
Okay.
Because I think she would prefer it that way.
Sure. What about the student body? Is there some type of communication that is from the student body to the staff?
Depends by professor, but there's
Depends on the professor.
a certain amount of classes we have to make.
Right, yeah. Okay,
To pass.
right. At some point, you'll follow up about it, right? I'm sure, because you're trying to make sure you make your grade and pass that class. Yeah. Did you want to add something?
I would just say it directly to my professor whenever I'm about to take vacation ahead of time and ask them if there's some material that I need to catch up beforehand and stuff.
Good.
Yeah, speak directly to them.
Good, good. These are all good things, good best practices. Find out directly from those that you'll be reporting to what's appropriate for them, what is okay for them. Yes, sir.
I've encountered like a wide variety of excuses for when they will and will not let you make up the words.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on the individual.
Yeah. Yeah. Communication is the key, though. As long as you communicate and you have clear understanding between you and those that you're reporting to, that's the key, communication. Personal interactions, so professional courtesy and respect. Remember your parents maybe when you were little, or maybe a teacher that would always recite the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Same thing, that's courtesy and respect. Take the time to be polite. Treat your coworkers, your supervisors with respect. Think about how you want to be treated and then treat others that way, right? Consider their feelings. And consideration of their feelings is extremely, extremely important. How do you think professional courtesy would affect you, or how is it already affecting you when someone's kind to you at work or kind to you at school? What effect does it have on you?
Like being respected.
Uh-huh.
Highly, they respect you and they see through you and they
Yeah.
believe in you. Like I feel like being trusted, I can do my work well.
That's huge, huge. Trust, right? Trust with any relationship, even when you're starting a friendship, when you're a child, right? It's all a matter of how you treat. You know, no friend is going to want to be around you if you don't treat them like their friend, right? Yes, ma'am.
And the child says it makes me want to continue working there.
Yeah, makes you want to continue to work there, right? You feel respected. You feel you're heard, right? And the workplace, it contributes to retention. People stay around in places they feel respected. You can expect to be treated with respect in return. So to your point, when you treat people with respect, most times, more than none, you're treated back with that same respect. Criticism is not constructive. Fostering a creative environment where everyone is solving problems and pushing for excellence requires collaboration, not criticism. So I know sometimes that's conflicting, right? Because not all criticism is bad, but collaboration is going to be a much better result than criticism. How can we work together to make this better, right? When disagreements arise or a correction is required, I don't like this should be followed up with here's why, right? I'll tell you, as a manager, and for any other manager that I've ever worked with, I hate when people come to me with a problem that don't have a solution to it, right? Because they're just looking for me to come up with a solution to it. Now, I'm the leader and the buck stops with me, but at the same time, let's when you have a collaborative opportunity and you sit down and you speak about things, you talk about things, and I understand why this is getting in your way or why this is an opportunity, then together, and especially for my team, they're in the trenches every single day. So their processes and things like that, they're much more familiar with because they're doing it every single day. So if I know what's getting in their way and I understand what their suggestions are back to me with how we could enhance this or make this better, then together we can create something better, right? But not going with a suggestion or not going with a solution just basically makes you look like a complainer, right? Like you're just trying to get out of doing what needs to be done. So think about that. Go to whomever you're taking something critical to, go to them with what you can do or what we can do, or here's a solution that might work better, right? A suggestion for how we might proceed and make things better to come. Anything else in chat? Good. Assist, foster, collaborate rather than attacking. And again, going back to the golden rule, just do to others as you'd have them do to you, right? Respect is just a continuous circle. Personal interaction. So voicing concerns versus venting frustration. I've had times throughout my career where I've went to my leader or I've had my team come to me and say, I want to vent. And until I heard this phrase or I read voicing concerns, venting frustration, I was just okay with venting, right? But hearing it in the context of voicing concerns, it has so much more professional merit. It just sounds better and it feels better. So the definition of voicing is acting to uphold a standard. Venting is releasing a feeling or an opinion. Voicing speaks, venting responds. So voicing a concern, obviously, again, coming with a solution or what can we do differently, versus venting, I just don't like it and you need to change it, right? There's a difference. Voicing concerns versus venting frustration. And so I've worked really hard with my teams throughout the years to help them understand the difference of the contexts. And for myself, always present concerns in a constructive manner, frame it in a positive light if possible. You can choose to come across as the team player who wants to improve the situation, or the negative Nancy who's always causing trouble. Anybody ever had a negative Nancy in the class or on your team at work, right? It's dredging, it's dreadful. I hate it. And everybody else that works with you in that environment hates it too. They just may not have told you, right? Yes, sir.
Have you developed a way to pick up on that in like the interview process?
An interview process, sometimes, depending on, most interviews now are behavioral type of interviews. So how you respond or how you have had experience in dealing with situations. And a lot of times it can shed light on that depending on the response. But you know, sometimes life gets in the way for some people. And so in the interview, it may be roses and this is the best part. And then, you know, something happened in the time frame that they come to work for you. And maybe there's an event in their life where they're just having a downward season. And maybe you can help coach that to a different place. But typically, characteristically, your negative Nancy's will typically always be your negative Nancy's. How you manage that is different depending on the individual. So, anybody ever encountered a workplace or a classroom bully? Somebody that's always wanting to say it should be done this way, or maybe at work you should do it different, or this, that, and the other. Anybody? No? You've been blessed. That's great. Good. How about you? Anything?
Yeah, but nobody really had a position before we really.
Do anything about it? Yeah. Yeah. What about you guys at work? Anybody ever kind of seem like a bully at work, maybe in your past career experiences?
There have been people that were extremely unpleasant and impolite.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were trying to bully or if that's just their personality.
Yeah.
But it sure made things unpleasant.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It does. You always feel like that there's always one in every meeting, right? That always seems like that they have to kind of control or kind of manipulate and navigate the meeting on how they want it done. And to your point, unless there's a leader present that can kind of pull that back around, it can be dreadful. You know, you don't want to be around that individual or be in a meeting with that individual, right?
It gets complicated when the workplace bully is the boss.
Most definitely.
Somebody in the chat said yes.
Most
my
definitely.
managers. So they have
My
to
managers,
know
yeah.
Because they're in a place of authority, yet
Sure.
they're
Yeah.
not modeling the way they would like their employees to work with each other.
That's so true. And it's something that as leaders, we have the responsibility to make sure that we're not creating that culture and that environment for those that report to us. And it's so true. The thing that you have to remember is that communication goes both ways, right? And so how did you respond? And I'm not saying this is the case in every case, right? But how did you respond early on that may have created that environment? Or is that just how that person is? Maybe that's just characteristic for them. But really spending some time to see if there is. My dad, I remember when I was a kid, there were times that you would go to my dad if you had something pressing and you wanted to talk to him about, and then there were other times you just didn't bring it to his attention, right? And so as a kid, early on, I kind of learned when to ask, are we going to Disney World in the spring for spring break, or when it wasn't the right time to do that, right? If my dad was in the middle of working on our car, or he's a truck driver working on his truck, I knew it wasn't the time because he was pressed. He was not going to be in the best mood because something was wrong. He needed to get it fixed so he could get back to work, right? So maybe even allowing that art as you, when you were a child, to kind of come into that play with a manager, right? When is it the right time? Is this the right time to bring it to their attention? But there's so much good in feedback, and it goes both ways. And really being able to spend some time and letting a leader know. It's tough. It's difficult. Going in a meeting with a leader, talking about communication, going into a meeting with a leader and not being assumptive, right? But just maybe help me understand or help me feel differently than I feel right now will help soften the approach so then that leader doesn't feel attacked, right? But it's so important. And that communication, we have to learn, it does go both ways. And at some point, you deserve the right to have communication with that leader and let them know. But yes, and it's in the workplace. It is where leaders can sometimes, because of authority, feel like or put forth that bully mentality, and it doesn't lead to a good culture. It doesn't lead to a good work environment. And if it doesn't change, by all means, find you a different place, right? So. We're blessed to have you, but at the same time, I mean, you're blessed to have a job, but at the same time, we're blessed to have you. So if that culture is not, if it's not returned, then find you somewhere else that will treat you the way you should be treated. So, gossip, put downs, negativity, those are all things that kind of wrap up who a bully might be, and it's just a dreadful environment. How we respond to a workplace bully. Anybody ever have an example? Anyone have an example of how maybe you've responded to that person that has been that bully? So you mentioned a manager. Did you ever have an opportunity to kind of speak to them, or you're just using that as an example? Was that something personally that?
No, it wasn't an environment where it was welcome to say anything.
And sometimes that's the
So
case.
people just left.
They leave.
Yeah.
Yep.
In the chat, they said I spoke out and was fired.
Yep. Yep. You know, and as leaders, and for those of you that obviously professionalism and leadership is super important, right? And I tell leaders this, I give leadership seminars to our teams. Leadership, there's such a thing now, it's called silent quitting. Some of you may have heard that term. And if you don't treat people the way they should be treated, they start looking for other jobs, right? And your retention starts going up, and you'll sit at your desk and you're trying to figure it out when all along you're the problem, right? So we can speak to these points on what you should be doing as you're learning and growing into your careers and maybe even developing into another career. But when you find yourself in a leadership position, these are still important, right?
Well,
yes, sir.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I think this is why it's so important, even more so now, I think, for human resources to
Sure.
To really find out why people are leaving.
Yep.
And be open to hearing the truth.
Yep. Most definitely.
Because it'll never be corrected if people, you know, of course that requires people being honest about
Sure.
why they're leaving.
Yep. Yep. It is so true. Anytime that I've ever had anyone on my team come to me and say, hey, I'm going to be transitioning to something different, I want to know why. Like, was it me? Is it something I could have done differently? Of course, I as a leader, I feel it's my responsibility to have some one-on-one touch points before it ever gets there, right? So I can kind of have an idea of what's going on. So it's really never a surprise when someone does, but if it has been the case, what's causing you to do that? And I think companies that culture is super important to them, they do have that type of strategy in place. They do want to hear. And it's, to your point, it's important for us to give that honest feedback, because that's the only way things can hopefully get to a different place if they care, right? So, personal interactions, 9 ground rules for cohesive team behavior. So, no complaining at all until willing to act, right? Don't go in with a complaint, go in with a solution. Hey, this is what's getting in my way. Here's what I think we might be able to do, right? Blame the process, not the person. Respect everyone on the team, assuming good motives. Directly confront with no triangulation. So directly confront the situation versus putting it off on something else and then kind of bringing your point back around. What is it? What's the issue? Voicing opinions strongly and respectfully. Starting out your conversation with respectfully, right, is one simple word that will help to alleviate any type of tension. Rely on and restate only what you know to be true. Yes, sir.
Do you have an example for number 5?
An example might be, respectfully, I know this is a new process. Here's how it's getting in my way, right? It's my opinion, because I may not see everything that the company sees on the back end of why this is a new process, right? Maybe they're looking at analytics as to why this should be a new process. But I know how it makes me feel. So respectfully voicing that opinion. Does that help answer your question? So just respectfully giving that feedback. Only relying on and restating what you know to be true. Nothing is worse than having someone come to you saying, so-and-so is talking about this, or so-and-so said this, or so-and-so said we need to do this. Oh, well, what are you saying, right? Are you saying this so that way it doesn't look like it's your idea and you're trying to just kind of throw it off on someone else? Take to your leader or take to those that you're communicating with on what you know to be true, right? And committing to team decisions and strategies. So as a team, sometimes it's just not your way on every single process, right? But what works for the best of the team, right? 80-20 rule. Think of it that way. 80% of what you're doing is going to get you to the final result, and you're working together and collaborating as a team. Commit to it, right? You're a team player. Creating accountability among the team and being an advocate for the team and these ground rules throughout the organization. Any questions, thoughts, feedback in the chat? No? Work ethic. It's a set of values based on hard work and diligence. Work ethic may include being reliable, having initiative, or pursuing new skills. Anyone ever heard someone say, oh, they've got great work ethic? Your ability to discipline yourself, setting clear goals, and working toward them every day will do more to guarantee your success than any other single factor. I always start with my team every single day. Tell me what you want to accomplish today, right? Take some time. Think about that. Nothing is more rewarding than at the end of the day, you being able to accomplish your goal, right? but it takes discipline. It has to be a process that you do every day. Success is a function of persistence and doggedness and willingness to work hard for 22 minutes to make sense of something that most people would give up on after 30 seconds. He would learn to fly one day. He who would learn to fly one day must first learn to stand and walk and run and climb and dance. One cannot fly into flying. You ever been to an airport? Anybody been to an airport? Yeah. So does the plane just go up from one spot to the air? No, it's momentum, right? Yeah. So first we got to learn to stand. We got to learn to run, walk, climb, dance, creating a discipline. 5 factors that demonstrate a work ethic. Integrity. An employee with integrity fosters trusting relationships with clients, coworkers, supervisors. Coworkers value the employee's ability to give honest feedback, trust the employee's advice. Supervisors rely on the employee's high moral standards, trusting him not to steal from the company or create problems. Sense of responsibility. Feeling personally responsible for the job performance, showing up on time, putting in best effort. I'll tell you, nothing is more rewarding as a leader than to have people that take that seriously, coming in and owning it as if it were their business. It's so rewarding. Those are the type of people that you can trust them, right, to lead the business and to do it well. Sense of responsibility. Emphasis on quality. So caring about the quality of work, not just churning out the bare minimum. I think we can see now in a society of like fast food, in our fast food world, right? You put your order in at the order screen, you go to the next window and they're hurrying you through that window, and then you get to the third window and you get your food, but it's all wrong, right? It's frustrating. You've sit there for 5 to 10 minutes and what you've ordered is just not what you wanted. I always say they need a 4th window where you can return it and they can get it right? Put 4 windows in. So emphasis on quality. Take your time, make sure it's done right. Discipline, completing tasks, assignments, staying focused on goals. Completing tasks and assignments is so huge, especially when you find yourself in a workplace or in a career that those that are depending on that task to be completed or some type of result, they need to hear back from you, and you need to work it all the way through. Sense of teamwork, so respecting your peers, helping your team meet its goals, right? So being mindful of what you need to accomplish for your personal success, but how do we accomplish things as a team for our team's success? Being mindful of that. Overall demeanor. So appearance, demeanor and dress should reflect the professionalism it takes to do your job. Be neat, clean, appropriate for your workplace. So when you go into a hospital, what do you see more of and how they're dressed?
Scrubs.
You see a lot of scrubs, right? You walk in, you know it's a hospital, right? They're in scrubs, right? You go to the police station here in town, how are they dressed? They're in their police uniforms, right? So making sure that you understand and that you're appropriately dressed for the position you find yourself in. Self-confidence, showing that you can handle any situation, accepting tasks outside of your comfort zone. I call these your stretch moments, right? Don't neglect them. Take advantage of them, right? Those are things that help you to continue to contribute, growing your self-confidence. It enables you to encourage others to adapt to changing situations in the work environment. And then cultural awareness, and this is so huge. We all come up with our own cultural biases, right? How we live and our own view, our own worldview. But it's super important to be mindful of that and to be aware that not everyone was raised like you were, and not everyone has the same thought process, and being very mindful of that and accepting of that. Overcome stereotypes and treating everyone the same. Get to know them. Get to know how they think, right? How might we increase our cultural knowledge? Anyone? How might we increase cultural knowledge?
I think
I'm sorry?
I said on campus here, we have a multicultural center.
Okay, so taking advantage of the multicultural center. Yes, sir.
I think just making the effort to be around different people.
Yeah, getting to know them, right? No different when you were a kid and you have a best friend now 30 years when you were a kid. How did you get to know them? You got to ask them questions, got to know what their favorite drink was, what their favorite food was, right? Get to know them. Yeah, get to know them. Anyone else? Safety awareness, working safely and efficiently, using safety gear, continuing education, workplace training, helps to maintain safety standards. Professional ethics and standards. Every field has a set of professional standards under which all members of employees operate. Nurses, law enforcement, social service, doctors, attorneys, journalists, and many other professionals are bound by state, local, and professional specific codes of conduct, ethics, and standards. Ethical conduct includes considerations related to privacy. So in HIPAA, that applies mostly to medical careers. FERPA pertains to school and privacy, Education Privacy Act. And then FCRA is just one example of many regulations that within my industry that I have to understand and make sure that I'm aware of and comply with that certain privacy ethical conduct. Refraining from gossip or spreading rumors, honesty and maintaining positive and appropriate professional attitude. So violation of those can cost you your whole career. And depending on if what you're doing requires you to be licensed or not, you could lose those licenses and never be able to practice your what you went to school for or what's important to you, what you dreamed about, right? It could have super impact. So being mindful of what those regulations are, and then of course complying in accordance to what they are. Individuals who fail to abide by professional standards lose their jobs. They run the risk of losing professional and personal integrity, credibility. Students must assess personal and professional standards because ethics you have now will cross over into your professional positions. So things like lying, cheating on tests, right? Stealing, even small things, they'll cause you to lose your job, okay? I had a lady that worked for me once. I loved her. Anything that I took to her, she could do it. No job that she couldn't do. Discovered one day that she knew a client and she could have easily made the decision to do the type of transaction that she was wanting to do by indicating that she knew him and there was nothing else that was required of her. Instead, she chose to go the route of inputting his identification into the system, and his ID was expired, and she fudged the expiration date, which cost her career of 25 years. I had to terminate her because she falsified company information, right, on a client that she really knew. She didn't even have to take the fall for that. And that was the hardest termination throughout my leadership career that I've had to do. But at the same time, when you think about it, how much more had been done through the years, right? You think of those people that you really hold with high integrity, but has there been any other small things that maybe we just weren't aware of? So those small things can cause you to lose your job, right? So what would you do? What are you doing now? The way that you dress, the way that you present yourself in all settings, the way you interact with your colleagues, fellow students, professors, employers. It's a part of your professional identity. You must begin to hone in on your professional ethics now to be successful professionally in the future. So being mindful of that. And I always tell students or those that I'm with when I'm presenting this presentation, write that down, professional identity. And think about that. Give time to that thought on what do you want to be perceived as? What do you want to be known as, right? Few things to remember. Always put your best foot forward. Present yourself in the best light. Encourage and help others. Don't complain, but act. Doing so gets you two things, either success or failure, right? So it's be very mindful of the topics that we talked about and hone in on them. Give yourself the time that you need to hone in on your strengths and things that you want others to perceive you as and things that you feel would be important to you in your professional endeavors. And they will either get you to success, or if you don't, they could ultimately bring you failure.